This podcast it's really like personal to me because I'm a very extroverted person, and I'm a very open person. People that know me know that I'm really loud. I don't really care about a lot. I just be going with the flow. But there is a different level of vulnerability that you have to have to sit in front of your camera and yap. It's just different. I don't know. I understand why so many people don't do it, or they want to do it for so long and never get around to it, because it is actually really scary. But that's the point, right? It's 2026. Everything's scary. Let's be so for real. Like, the very least that we can do is push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, because you never know what will come in. And that is what I'm trying to do through this last year of my 20s. And this podcast is kind of a project in reflecting on that, reflecting on my experiences and soaking it in and expressing it out. It's an exercise in a way of rejection therapy, of making myself visible, not being scared, or being scared and doing it anyway. And that's the energy that I want to bring into 29, because there's no time like the present, not getting any younger, and, just like live life. I almost said live, laugh, love, but that too. Live, laugh, love, and live life to the fullest every day. Carpe diem. Yes. But yeah, if you tuned into the first episode, I kind of talked a lot more about what the film school dropout is from that perspective of, redefining your own terms for your career. Ultimately, this podcast is a podcast for creatives, and I have a thesis statement that everyone is creative. Like, even if you don't consider yourself creative, you were created by a creator, so you're creative. But it's for creatives and quote unquote non-creatives who are figuring things out and redefining what their goals are, what their dreams are, what life you want to build in real time with me. That's what I'm doing. Like, I'm graduating from my MBA in 2 months. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do, and I'm leaving the page blank for a little while. And this is something that I've never done, because I'm the type of girl that always had the next plan planned out. I am a type B person. I am very chaotic, and I make spontaneous decisions. But at that macro level, oh, everything's buttoned up, everything's tea. I know what's happening. I know where I'm going. I have, usually a 2 to 3 year plan. And that's just been me. And I'm gonna get into that in this episode, more about my journey, how I ended up where I am, and why now I'm taking this time to question everything and zoom out a little bit. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in, if that's cool with y'all. Yeah? Okay. Perfect. Talking to yourself is so crazy. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out how far back I should go, but we could just take it all the way back, because we're talking about the journey here, right? So I'm going to start from the beginning. March 19th, 1997, I was born. Pisces, period. Shout out to all my Pisces listening. And I'm not going to go like literally that far back, but I remember even as a kid, one, I always loved sandwiches. Two, I've always loved cookies. This does connect, don't worry. And three, I remember I wrote like a love story situation, like a script for my parents. I might have been like 5 or 8. It was some young age, and like maybe it wasn't written down like an actual script, but I was directing them and telling them what to do and how to act. And I remember doing that, and my mom tells me about that time. She remembers it too. And after that, you make silly videos with your friends for like school projects, which I did. And I was always very vocal. Excuse me. I was always doing some kind of public speaking or in some club, And that was from a young age. Like that was even in middle school. So then I fast forward and I forgot about that. Honestly, I forgot about making that film with my parents, which I was like, come on, guys, give me more. Give me more. They weren't selling it. And I was like, guys, give me more. I need you to, be dramatic. Give it to me. But they were both engineers. So yeah, I don't know how I came to be like how I am, but I did. So anyway, there was that. And there was also an era where this is so crazy and so cringe, but every day at school, I would get 2 cookies in the lunch line because, like I said, I love cookies. But I would act out like a little show between the 2 cookies, like they were characters. And I was like stealing jokes from the Amanda Show, if y'all were around in that era. And it was like, I was just super dramatic and crazy about it. And it was called The Cookie Show. And I did it like every day at lunch. And it was ridiculous. But people was there. Like, I mean, I might have had a good 2 or 3 people that would tune into the show every day. And yeah, it was really, really chaotic of me to do that. But like I said, I really do love cookies. Like, it is that serious for me. So there's that. Like, that whole thing about shows and developing and just being a little crazy and acting things out, that was there from a young age. You grow up, you forget about it, like I was the overachiever in school, class president, debate team, dance team, track team. I was horrible at the track, but I just wanted to hang out with my friends. And I did all that stuff. Again, not realizing there really was a creative through line through it. Kind of nerdy, but debate team is not just arguing or debating. There's this thing called interp, which is basically like acting, and that's what you're judged on in debate. And me and my debate partner, we was winning all the time. Like, we were very tea. And so things like that are things now that I reflect that I kind of laugh, because when you do reflection like that, it's not that hard to find the little hints that kind of show you about things that might be aligned with your path, right? So fast forward, in college, was just having a blast. I did a lot of different jobs in college. Like, I was the type of person that I was always working. I'm an only child. I am spoiled. It's not a secret, but I've always been like a hard worker. Like, both my parents are from small towns. I wasn't going to get away with not working. That's it. And I'm so grateful for that, actually. So my first job was when I was like 15 or 16. My first job was at Spring Creek Barbecue, but I feel like I also assisted at this driving school for a little while. And then I was a host at TGI Fridays. Those were my first jobs in high school. Then in college, I was like an office assistant. I did social media for this nonprofit in Austin. I went to UT Austin, the business school there. And the funny thing is, I had wanted to go to NYU so bad in undergrad or in high school. And I got in, and like me and my dad, we went and we toured NYU, and I wanted to move there so bad, but it just made way more sense to stay in Texas financially. But it goes back to say there's little hints throughout your life that will guide you and show you where you're supposed to be in a way. So anyway, yeah, I'm in college. I'm doing all these different jobs. I was like a Tinder ambassador and doing events with them. I worked at the U.S. Department of Justice one summer because one of my cousin's best friend is the Was like the U.S. attorney in New Orleans. So I was in New Orleans having a blast. Summer 16. I know everybody's been talking about Summer 16, and yes, Summer 16 was like that for me. It was great. But yeah, I was like working in the Department of Justice. Like, what was I doing over there? It was crazy, but it was a really cool experience. I saw some crazy stuff in the courtroom. And yeah, and then I also worked at Texas Monthly Magazine. I did a volunteer program in Brazil and spent 6 weeks in Natal, Brazil. And I think because I started having a wide range of experiences early, I was able to land a gig at Instagram through the Facebook University internship program. So this was like 2017, 2018, and the tech world was booming. Okay, the checks were flowing and we were living the lavish life. Like, we were having a good old time over there at Facebook, when it was Facebook and not Meta. And working at Instagram was really, really dope. It was the summer that they launched Stories that I was working there. And I just remember it being a really like distinct experience. It was funny because I'm from Texas and I'm like, ooh, I'm spending the summer in California. Like, I got my shorts, I got my sandals, period. Baby, I was in the Bay Area. The Bay Area. It's not 72 and sunny there, especially in the summer. I had a rude awakening. I had to do some shopping. It was a huge culture shock for me. But again, it opened up my world so much. It was really amazing to be able to go in there and have that experience. So, fast forward, I spent 2 summers at Instagram, learned a lot both summers. The second summer was way harder than the first. I was on a different team, had a different manager, so the expectations were different, the workflows were different, and it was a real challenge for me. But yeah, worked through it, moved past it. Again, more growth, and it was the global brand marketing team. And it was great to see. That's where I really learned, like, what is a creative brief? How do you do treatment for that? Because I was studying marketing at UT, but I gotta be real, like, I can't really tell you one thing I learned at UT. I don't know if it's just because it's been a while, but yeah, your girl doesn't remember. And that's okay. And that's okay. So there's that. And then I also was working for South by Southwest in the semester when I could. I did volunteering first, and then I also was a sales content intern there. So just writing like digital articles for people that like paid for ad space there. And then I worked at Texas Monthly Magazine doing somewhat of a similar thing. But after that Instagram internship, that's whenever like storytelling clicked for me. And I was like, that's something that I like. That's something that I want to do. I want to learn more about. I want to be in. And the great thing about Instagram is that it's also a tech company, but it's also at the center of culture because we're posting on there, like culture happens online now, and Instagram was part of ushering that in. So I knew that I wanted my career to be at the intersection of those things. And being a marketing major, I was like, okay, yeah, like this can work for me because marketers tell stories about brands. So I'm storytelling, and brands are cultural statements, like Nike and Apple and Gucci. I don't know, like all these companies become cultural tent poles through marketing. So I was like, okay, this can work for me. So I ended up getting a job at Meta through the internship connection, and I was an account manager. So this era was so funny because so many people would be hitting me up to get back into their Instagram account after being locked out. And I'm just like, this is not my job, y'all. But yeah, so there's that. But I was an account manager, which is a very common entry level role for people coming out of undergrad, especially in that era, because advertising on social the way we know it today, it was not like that in 2019 yet. It was growing a lot. So it was evolving into what it is today. And so account managers were hired to manage advertiser relationships on the Meta platform. So I worked with like small and medium business owners to scale their ad spend on Facebook. And so, in theory, it sounds really cool. And there were parts of it that were really cool. I had an amazing team, amazing manager. All of us were people of color, and like 90% of us were Black on that team. And it was really cool. The job description, like as interesting as it might sound to some people, wasn't really resonating with me after some time. And COVID also hit about 9 months into me working that job. And that was like the first paradigm shift for me when it came to work. Because once we had to be inside, I started like painting, I was drawing, I was like making a lot of things with my hands. I was exploring these other career paths with the extra time that we had on our hands. And I started having a lot of questions, and I started feeling, okay, marketing might not be the type of storytelling that I'm interested in. And that evolved into me like reaching out to writers and producers on Instagram and setting up time to coffee chat with them. And I'll never forget what this one producer said to me. Her name's Mara Chan. She's really dope. And I was just like, yeah, like, how do you become a producer? Or like, how did you do it? And then she was like, you have to make stuff, you know? And I was like, wow, what a concept. What a concept. Like, in order to be a producer or a filmmaker, like, you have to make stuff. Simple but profound. And with that, I took some poems I had been writing and because I'm a big journaler, and I turned it into a short film with two of my besties out in Chicago because the Facebook job was in Chicago. And yeah, we made the short film. It was really cute. It was a really nice way to kind of navigate the emotions of that time period. And that short film helped me get involved with a few filmmaking nonprofits that just helped me learn a little bit more about that world. And again, like those nuggets just kept dropping for me. And then after that, I moved to Florida because it's cold in Chicago. What am I doing there if I don't have to be there, right? So I ended up moving down to Florida where my mom's side of the family is, just because it's like COVID, like it's work remote, flexible. And I was like, let me go where it's warm. And because I grew up in Texas, I only got to spend so much time with my mom's side of the family. So this was like a really nice opportunity to spend more time with them. And what's crazy about this time is like about a year, actually it was less than a year. It was about 4 or 5 months into me living in Florida. My dad ended up passing away very suddenly, and it was really tragic, really sad. But the fact that, you know, God just had it to where I moved by family and by my maternal side during that time it was super meaningful for me because it was like I just had such a great support system because like I said, I'm an only child. So this was an interesting time for me in my career because when you lose somebody like that, you start questioning everything. Like you start questioning everything. You don't want to do anything. And I was able to take a medical leave at this time, which is a huge blessing. And I traveled a lot, spent time with friends, cleared my head a bit, you know, but I still, like, in the back of my head knew that I wanted something different for my career. And one of my friends hooked me up with a job at Nielsen. That's where she was working. And Nielsen they're like a media company. They do measurement, but they have a lot of relationships with, big brands. Majority of any big brand is doing some kind of measurement with Nielsen. And so that job was really cool because it was very laid back, fully remote, and it also just had a lot of exposure to different brands and how they think about measuring like the campaigns that they're doing. So I learned a lot at that job. And during that time, I also moved to Atlanta because I knew that there's a lot of production there, a lot of creative momentum there, and I wanted to get involved with that. And so I moved there. I invested in a property, so that was cool. And then I started living my Atlanta chapter. And in that chapter, I was running social media for this really, really impressive set designer, Set by Sky, because I was very interested in the art department world of filmmaking. My stepmom's nephew was doing an indie film and he let me work on set, and that was like and it was like a horror film with a monster and stuff. So like just seeing how the art department can create a world was really interesting to me. And so yeah, I started running the social media for Sky, and I did that for about 9 months while I was, working my job. But while I was doing that, I just learned a lot from just observing her work and like what it takes to be a full-time creative entrepreneur. And it is no joke. You know what I mean? Like any creative entrepreneur that just give them a hug. Like next time you see them, just give them a hug. It's hard work, seriously. And at the same time, one of my good friends started an event series in Atlanta, and she needed help with, just bringing the components of the events together. And so I started helping her with that. And the event series was called Mood Room. And, the events would sell out. We would have, it's kind of like a twist on an open mic night. Really, really cool events. And it got me into that world of creating experiences and production, like event production and experiential events. So throughout the rest of my time in Atlanta, I was able to do an event for Atlanta Fashion Week. I did an event for Ben Riley where I just kind of helped the artist with the event execution and the aesthetics of the event, and like trying to keep things under budget and things like that. I was able to PA on a couple of sets, but not as much as I would have thought that I would have been able to. But it's hard to get into the space. It really is. So yeah, I'm living and working in Atlanta. I also forgot a whole part of this story about my like career trajectory and how I ended up here. But during COVID, I was drawing and painting a lot, and people started asking for prints of the artwork. So I started selling them. It was like this hair print that was really cute. And then I was thinking like, okay, I don't want to be limited to prints. What else should I do? And I designed some pillows and I released some pillows. These pillows here are like the second wave of the pillows that I designed, but the first wave was really cute. A lot of people bought them. And it was mainly friends and family, but it was still cool that they cared enough and liked it enough to order it. And that is kind of what turned on my entrepreneurship brain. So that was like 2020 into 2021. And again, like creating those pillows and creating that business, it kind of it helped me process the loss of my dad and just keep moving forward. That's been one of my themes. I'm just always moving to the next thing and always thinking about what's next. And so that was happening while all this other stuff is happening. So while I'm in Atlanta, I did some pop-ups with the pillows, sold some more prints, and was like doing that. But I never scaled it to where it's something that was super substantial for my income. It was mainly just something that I enjoyed doing. And I lived in a really nice loft in Atlanta. And so I started, posting videos about my decorating process. And those videos started to blow up on TikTok a little bit. I remember it was one day I removed these hardwood floors that were in the loft because it was way too yellow for me, like way too warm. And TikTok tore me up about removing those hardwood floors because I put in like a dark concrete. The concrete that I had got put in there, it didn't match like the true vision I had for it, but I was still cool with it. But yeah, TikTok ate me up over that. It was crazy. But yeah, because of that, I started getting into interior design. Like my friends started asking me for help with their homes, and I enjoyed doing it. And so in Atlanta was when all these interests started like converging into a gumbo of interests. That's whenever like the multi hyphenate of it all really started materializing. Because at this time, I made my short film. I'm working in marketing. I'm working in events. I'm working as a PA sometimes. I have my small business with the pillows. And I'm also now doing interior design. So there's like a lot of things happening. And I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this momentum, loving it. But I could tell that there was just going to be some movement that needed to happen. And I was talking with mutual friends. We were in like Martha's Vineyard. No, we were in Miami and then we were in Martha's Vineyard. And a lot of them were talking about grad school and, going to grad school as one does in their late 20s, like mid to late 20s, podcast, grad school, marathon, marriage, baby. Have your pick. I said, okay, I'm going to explore the grad school thing. And I didn't want to like take too much time to think about that decision to go for it because I'm a very like action forward person. Once I have an idea, I like to go for it. And so I gave myself like a 4-month runway. I said, we're going to try and apply to NYU. I knew that was the only school that I wanted to go to because of their relationship with Tish and, the location being in downtown New York. I knew it was like the right place for me and, how I wanted to go there in undergrad and all of those things. And so I applied and I got in, I don't need to go into the details about how like it was 1, 2, 3, take an exam, write the essay, got in. But what's crazy about that experience is that I got the call that I got into NYU on the 3-year anniversary of my dad's passing. So that it floored me. I was super emotional about it, but it was just like a confirmation that it was the right path forward. And so I picked up all my stuff and I got to moving. I got to moving and shaking and moved to New York. And NYU has been a great experience because, again, it has continued to open up my world and open up what I can now see as possible for myself. And that's the great thing about MBA programs. If you know going in the things that you want to get out of it, you'll get that, And so with just the MBA alone, I've been able to like work with HBO on some case projects, with Deloitte, with sports, with the sports world. I was able to go to the Cannes Film Festival, the Sundance Film Festival, and the classes have been really great. Like I said, just expansion. And that's part of the reason why I'm here, because it's like my mind keeps expanding into what I can conceptualize for myself. And getting into the film school, how that happened, it was like a fluke with admissions. So there was open spots. So me and a couple other people hopped over. And that also expanded my world because now I understand even more like what it means to be an indie filmmaker, what it means to be a student filmmaker. I'm working on sets. I'm helping produce my classmates' short films, and it brings me so much joy. It's really difficult, but it literally makes me super happy. And so all these experiences are converging now, and now you kind of know the background to understand why I'm at this crossroads when it comes to what to do post-grad, which I forgot to talk about my summer internship. Again, dream company, dream job, Great team, great manager, was living my best life in LA. And again, it just expanded. Like, now I really understand what it means to develop a concept from a pitch or from a sizzle and turn it into something that we see on our screens. This is the type of experience that I literally prayed about, before coming into grad school. And so now having all of these experiences, I'm sitting here, wow, like I've seen the things I've wanted to see. I've done a lot of things I've wanted to do. What does that look like now? And that's why I'm like pressing pause on my ambitions and just, I'm going to make my podcast and I'm going to explore my other interests, but in a way that's not so like goal driven, in a way that's just organic and that feels fun. So the podcast is going to be something I'm giving my time to. And I'm also writing and directing a short film that I will be shooting this summer in New York. So, and I plan on doing some traveling and networking, like attending the American Black Film Festival, Cannes Lion, and, being in the mix, because it is true what they say, your network can take you so far. And like the more people I meet, the more people who are producing or directing or in marketing that are doing interesting things, like when I meet them, it helps give me context into, is this something I see myself doing? Is this a project that I want to be attached to? So that's my plan for these next few months after school. And I'm like letting it open. Like as you've heard through this story, I always have the next thing planned. Like it's already figured out. Even in the most chaotic of times, I'm working on something, I'm doing something. And technically this podcast is another project, but I'm looking at it in a completely different way than my previous projects. This is about accountability to myself and about vulnerability, visibility, and just being open-minded. It's not about, it's like with art, like you have to be comfortable making it and detached from the outcome of your product. Once it's out there in the world, it's out there. And that's how I'm looking at, this effort. And so, yeah. Chapter 2 of the film school Dropout, just to sort of set the stage of like where I'm at, like what this podcast might evolve into, or where, at least where it's coming from. And that's what we're doing, guys. That's what we're doing. It's interesting to like host a podcast episode and figure out how to wrap up the episode, but it's pretty much over for today. Remember to drop out of something and tap into something else. Just change the way you're thinking about things. That's what I'm doing it out loud. So it might sound a little crazy, but I'm happy I got to share with y'all a little bit more about where I'm coming from and all the crazy experiences that I've had. And yeah, and like I said, it's going to be a journey. So this is like day one. And I'm going to do this podcast for a full year at least. That's the promise I made to myself with going on this endeavor. Like the podcast is going to happen once a week, 52 episodes. I can't wait to see where we're at the end, but I have no idea. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.